In 1944, Texas was hot, dry, and worn down by the weight of a world at war. Cities were tense, factories were overloaded, and even far-out farms felt the pressure. Workers were gone, supplies were low, and machinery was getting older by the day. Men who usually plowed fields were fighting in Europe. Families were holding on with whatever strength they had left. On the outskirts of Hearne, Texas, stood the Johnson family farm, a wide stretch of land that used to bloom with health, but now it looked tired, just like its owner, Henry Johnson. His two sons were serving overseas, and at home he had only his wife, a handful of tools, and a farm that was slowly slipping away. The worst blow came one afternoon when the farm's tractor suddenly died. The ignition wire snapped. A small problem in normal times, but during wartime, when metal was rationed and replacement parts were impossible to find, it was devastating. Without the tractor, the soil couldn't be plowed, crops couldn't be harvested, and money wouldn't come in. And without money, the farm would be lost. Henry sat on his porch with his head in his hands. He had fought through droughts, storms, and tough years, but this time he truly feared the end. A few days later, a military truck rolled up to the farm. Inside were young men, thin, sunburnt, and wearing the simple uniforms of German prisoners of war. America was fighting Germany, but with the country desperate for farm labor, POWs were assigned to work under strict guard. Among them was a 23-year-old mechanic named Friedrich Bauer. Quiet, observant, and despite his situation, he carried himself with a calm steadiness, like someone who had spent his whole life fixing things with his hands. Henry wasn't happy about having enemy soldiers on his land, but he had no choice. The farm needed help. During a lunch break, Friedrich wandered behind the barn and noticed the broken tractor. He knelt down, examined the engine, and studied the snapped ignition wire with the eyes of someone who understood machines like old friends. He walked up to Henry and said in a soft, hesitant voice, "I can fix this." Henry squinted at him. "You? That tractor needs a new ignition wire, and we don't have one." Friedrich shrugged lightly. "I don't need a new one. Just some scrap metal and baling wire." Henry almost laughed. "Baling wire? Son, that's for holding fences together, not fixing engines." But Friedrich gave a small smile and answered, "It's a stupid wire trick, but it works." With nothing to lose, Henry waved a hand and let him try. In the heat of the Texas sun, Friedrich gathered old baling wire from the fence line. He worked silently, twisting it, bending it, shaping it with precision. His hands moved like they remembered every machine he had ever repaired back home in Germany. Machines his family once used on their own farm. The American guards chuckled. Even Henry shook his head, thinking the young man was wasting time. But Friedrich continued, calm and focused. He replaced the broken section with his handmade wire trick, cleaned his hands, and looked at Henry. "Try it," he said simply. Henry climbed onto the tractor, turned the key. Click, click, roar! The tractor burst to life. The engine shook the ground, sending a vibration of hope across the entire field. Henry stared at Friedrich in disbelief. How did you do that?" he asked. Friedrich replied with a humble grin. "In Germany, we don't throw things away. We make them work." From that day forward, everything changed. The tractor was running. The harvest could begin. The farm, once on the edge of collapse, was alive again. Friedrich became the quiet hero of the Johnson farm. He fixed irrigation lines, repaired broken tools, patched fences, and used his stupid wire tricks more times than anyone could count. With every repair, the farm grew stronger. Henry began to trust him. Mrs. Johnson started packing him extra sandwiches. Even the guards softened around him. Language wasn't perfect between them, but kindness didn't need translation. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the wheat fields, Henry finally asked, "Why did you help us? We're your enemy." Friedrich stared at the horizon for a moment before answering. "My father had a farm too. Bombs destroyed it. When I fix your land, it feels like I'm repairing a part of home." Henry felt something shift inside him. War had separated them, but humanity brought them together. Eventually, the war ended. The day came for the POWs to be sent back to Europe. As Friedrich climbed onto the truck, Henry grabbed his hand and placed a small toolbox in it. "For your new beginning," Henry said. "You saved my farm. I hope you can rebuild yours." Friedrich's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he whispered. "I will never forget." Years passed. Letters began arriving from Germany. Friedrich rebuilt his family's farm using the same clever wire tricks he had used in Texas. At the end of every letter he wrote, "I still use the stupid wire trick. Texas taught me never to give up." And every harvest season, as Henry watched his tractor rumble across the field, he would smile quietly, because he knew that once, in the middle of a world at war, a German prisoner didn't just fix a machine. He saved a family's future, using nothing but a piece of baling wire and a good heart.